My name is Linda Leeks, and I live in a cooperative in Northwest DC called the Ella Jo Baker Intentional Community Cooperative.
My name is Adjoa Nzinga Ifateo, and I'm a member of the Ella Jo Baker Intentional Community in Columbia Heights, Ward 1, and it is a cooperative of community activists.
My name is Nancy Rowand, and I'm a founding member of Beecher Cooperative, which is in Northwest Washington, Ward 3. And I would venture to say that we're probably the only affordable housing in Ward 3.
My name is Savannah Easley, and the name of our co-op is We Still Have a Dream Cooperative.
Limited Equity Cooperative is a cooperative that you buy into, because cooperatives, you have to buy into a cooperative. And limited equity, the equity amount, the share amount is smaller than market rates. So with limited equity cooperative, most of the time the people are very low income and they're not used to being owners.
I was the first one to move in the building. That was in 1988. In about 1994, the building was foreclosed on, and we were told about the first right to purchase for tenants. So we decided to find out about that. So we heard of this organization called WISH, which is the Washington Inner City Self-Help. We got with them and we formed a tenant association. That was the first step in us trying to become a co-op. We got loans from the DC government, a 1% loan and a 3% loan. We became owners in 1996. We were fortunate enough, we were good tenants, because we was a small group and we didn't have any problems. After we got rid of the one person that was causing us the problem, we just came together. We paid our rent every month. We did everything that we were supposed to do. We had to have a property manager. We paid off our building by 2016. So in 20 years, our co-op is completely paid for. After the co-op, after we paid for it and everything, we no longer needed a property manager, I took over as the property manager. And what we did was, after we paid for the building and everything, of course we wasn't paying as much rent as we had been paying, but we decided that we're going to each pay a certain amount of money each month. And from that, we were able to start doing some renovations on the building, and we paid cash. Like, for instance, so far we got brand new steps. We have 31 brand new windows. We have so far 5 exterior doors. So what we do is we continue to, even now, although we're doing a lot of renovations, we're going to continue to keep collecting money, and every month we improving our building.
We formed a tenant association in 1977 after having received eviction notices which were hand-delivered to our doors on Christmas Eve Day. And most of us were not expecting such sad news. There were a few tenants who knew that that was coming, and they were already meeting. And we received a lot of help from the DC government at that time. Thank goodness. Johnny Barnes helped. Ward 3 Council Member Polly Shackleton helped. Walter Fauntroy's office helped. And we were able to negotiate and purchase 6 of the 8 buildings. We currently do still have the 6 buildings. Each building has either 10 or 11 units, and so we have 63 units total at Beecher Cooperative. At the time when the eviction notices came out, Most of us were paying between $119 to maybe $129 per month for rent. And we were told that what we paid would be immediately doubled, and that was going to hit a lot of us pretty hard. At the time of the eviction notices, I had 18-month-old twins and had no idea what to do. But fortunately, other people were able to make inroads, and we were able to purchase the 6 buildings. We maintained a blanket mortgage at that time, and although our costs did increase for members, and a lot of members did leave, most members were able to stay, and some of that was because of help from HUD with Section 8 slots. We had some artists and other people who were able to stay with us at Beecher because of the HUD Section 8 slot availability. Other programs helped as well. DCHPAP, the Housing Purchase Assistance Program. Initially, our shares were $1,000, and some people needed help for that, and so they were able to get $500 from HPAP and put in $500 of their own money. Shares increased in equity slowly. In 1986, we were faced with a buyout of the limited partnership, which was formed initially in order to purchase the buildings. We had to raise $2.5 million at that time in order to keep the cooperative going. And we did that with individual mortgages. Most of those were from the National Cooperative Bank, and they were founded with a housing finance agency bond. At that time, the interest rates were 10.75%. But we were just glad to stay. Our buildings are in Glover Park, which is a wonderful, quiet, residential area. We're a half a block from extensive woods and about 5 blocks from Wisconsin Avenue, with the restaurants, shops, pharmacy, post office, and most of the conveniences that you want to have in a neighborhood. We feel very fortunate to still be viable and to still have affordable housing. And I hope it continues into the future.
One of the things that we did when we set it up was to make this a covenant in the process that this property would remain affordable, that nobody could sell a unit and make $1 million out of it.
Absolutely.
So the whole intent was for affordable house, so that people could have inexpensive housing that was decent. But the cooperative angle also appealed to us because we could build community with people.
Absolutely.
With activists who were trying to make a difference in DC. We could build community,
Right.
as well as provide ourselves a decent living in terms of not having to pay 50% of our income for housing.
Right.
And I think it really bears out now. You know, what is this, like 15 years later, we could not be able to afford to live in that neighborhood in Columbia Heights now, had we not formed that co-op.
Right.
Because you can't even get a studio for less than $1,500.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes things just happen. Devastating things. It's got nothing to do with fairness. Bam, your whole world changes in an instant. And you never see it coming. That's what happened to me the day my mother had a stroke. I'm Paul George, and I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke FAST, FAST.
When I testified in front of the DC Council, I think it was in the early 90s, I let them know how important co-ops were to us because the rent was going up. We couldn't really be able to afford a lot of things back then unless we had someone to help us out and financially because so I just let them know that it was real important for us to have a co-op.
And that's one of the good things about cooperatives is that it teaches you how to be better citizens. We learn governance. We learn the importance of doing stuff for ourselves. And so one of the benefits of a cooperative is that people become more involved in their community as a result and learn how to get involved with each other and help each other out. So to have somebody come in and just do it for us leaves us in a dependent position. Right.
A cooperative principle, and I think principle number 5 is continual education. And that's one of the major challenge that we have with cooperative because in my experience I found when an apartment building is converted to cooperative because the residents have that right and they convert to a cooperative, usually it is just the quote-unquote board with the information about what a cooperative is, and they get to be the group that runs everything. They get to be like the landlord. And the other folks in the cooperative are still have a tenant's mentality. That's what I call it, a tenant mentality, because the observance of principle number 5, continuing education, is not used so that everybody will understand and learn how to work together.
Well, I think Linda probably can address this more because she has a history of organizing. But one of the problems that we did run into was that Manna, who was our housing developer, didn't really believe in cooperatives. They were really pushing condos. And so we really had to fight for the idea of having cooperatives.
Working with housing counseling services has been great. Working with the government entities, not so great, ever. We're very grateful for the initial assistance we received. However, our property taxes have been increased because we can no longer use our homestead exemptions. Our trash collection credits get us up, I guess, to the point where the homestead exemptions aren't helpful. I think the DC Council passed some legislation several years ago so that we do have to pay these increased taxes rather than get the deductions that I thought that we were entitled to. We also, at Beecher, have had trouble being recognized as a limited equity co-op, even though it's in our governing documents. At first, the problem was that the terms limited equity were not in the governing documents. It said not-for-profit, and it also outlined how the shares increased, that they were controlled, but the term limited equity was not in the documents. It is now. My hope is that we can push and get the recognition of limited equity so that members don't have to pay so many taxes upon leaving and upon coming into the co-op. Right now, I think it's a little bit over $1,000 per transaction when you become a member and when you leave the co-op because of the limited equity feature not being accepted by the DC government.
One of the ways that I think that the city council could support the co-ops is to make sure that there are people in place to help. like I said, we had an organization that walked us all the way through the process.
I do feel that limited equity co-ops should get more support from the DC government. Tax abatements would be helpful. Looking at the property taxes and also taxes that are charged when members go to settlement, if those could be abated, that would help. Also, if there's any way that the DC government could work with the federal government to either fund or to provide education, to provide any help for management, that would be helpful as well.
You made a point about there not being enough money for organizations that are helping co-ops, or they help co-ops in a top-down kind of manner.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, would they do this to the point where they would put themselves out of a job? Or could they continue to have a job if they did the job in a way that was really successful?
Yeah, my experience is that the organizations that are funded by the government to go in and work with residents when they are purchasing their properties and becoming cooperative is that they are just funded to just go in and help people from the very beginning, not teaching them to how to sustain themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because the people who are in charge make decisions about funding and about organizations are not clear themselves. They're not knowledgeable themselves about what cooperatives are about and how cooperatives are sustain themselves. At least one council person that I've spoken to who want the government to get out of providing funding for cooperatives, period, housing cooperatives, period, because they are failures. Housing, the co-ops will fail. Well, of course they're going to fail if they don't know how to be cooperative, how to cooperate. They don't know what the principles are. They don't know how to live that life, because that's not what they are experienced all their lives.
Right.
So all our lives. So of course that's the case, and so that's part of the problem. We need to be able to have government agencies understand and know how to make sure sustain housing for low and moderate income people, and particularly cooperatives.